G'day Binanceans and welcome to this week's episode of Binance Beach. We're up to episode 65 and this week I'm joined by Jock and Fletcher from Hashlock. These guys are the local blockchain security experts. They audit smart contracts for a living. These guys are the perfect people to be talking about how to stay safe in the digital Wild West that we work and live in as crypto users. Lads, welcome to the show.
Cheers for having us, Liam. Thanks so much.
Let's kick it off briefly with your background and your story. You know, you guys are a really great success story as a startup in the local crypto industry. I first met you guys at CryptoCon in 2022, and you were brand new to the ecosystem. You were just working on this security startup. And over the last couple of years, you guys have really grown to be a player in the local scene. Talk to me about what blockchain security and smart contract auditing actually involves, and a little bit about your business story at Hashlock.
Easy. I think for us it's been a very fun journey starting out as two dudes from Newcastle at the time, and I think, like you said, those Oz CryptoCons played a huge part. But Jock and myself deciding to do a startup in the Web3 space, and our quick research figured out that there wasn't a security company in Australia that was doing smart contract audits after a very short amount of market research. So that was the sign for us that there was a gap in the market, and we took it and we ran. And over that first year, a lot of challenges of doing the startup and having no money and trying to travel to events and all those sort of things, and some crazy stories that we could potentially go into there. But we were able to get a name in the Australian ecosystem. And then from there, we were able to expand that reputation and brand globally. And then fast forward nearly 4 years later, we're turning 4 this year, which is wild to say. We known all around the world as one of the leading smart contract auditing and Web3 security teams. Hopefully we're helping a lot of people, and there's lots of details we can go into that story, but essentially Jock and I coming together and figuring out how to do things and navigate all the traditional crazy stories of startup life, but while trying to do something that secures the industry and makes it a better, safer place.
Yeah, it's such a core service that is required, right? And we do operate in a bit of a digital Wild West. Like, crypto has that reputation. Talk to me really briefly about what the service, like what blockchain security actually entails. Like, what are the services you guys are delivering for clients?
Yeah, of course. So I think the main one would definitely be a smart contract audit. So that could be seen as like a security review of the code. And so how that process works is we engage with the project leads or the founders, and they shoot us the code. We give them a preliminary report of the review of the code, and that remains like anonymous, and it can't be public. And then once that happens, we have all the fixes and all of our recommendations to fix any exploits or vulnerabilities in the code in that initial report. Then they make those fixes, we check the code again, and then we send through a updated final report. And that sort of has a security rating in there and has a list of all the vulnerabilities that we found and whether they were fixed. Or for example, sometimes you might have a informational finding that we initially flagged as an issue, and it was later found that actually, that doesn't need to be fixed. So all of that, it's sort of like a log, or an audit, like it's called, of the code base and where it was, what happened, and how it's changed and where it's at now. And so what we actually do with those two, obviously we hand them across to the project, but we also publish them on our website. So I think, that's a cool place if anyone wants to see like what we're up to at the moment and what projects we've recently audited. But that would be the main service. And obviously you have like holistic services around that. So we do bug bounty management, we do attack and penetration testing on projects like front end and back end that may not be absolutely Web3, but still related to blockchain technology. So pretty much anything that is a holistic security service in regards to cybersecurity, but smart contract auditing would definitely be our number one.
So let's flip it to a user perspective, because I think most of our Binance users who are watching the show are users who are interacting with smart contracts, who might be depositing funds on Binance and then moving them into DeFi and, searching for yield or making swaps or starting to mint NFTs or doing all of these things that you can do on chain. What are the most common security risks that they need to keep an eye out for when they're starting to interact on chain? How do they stay safe as they navigate that new world?
Yeah, I mean, Jock could probably talk more to some of these things, but I think one really good thing with what we do is those reports that we do are usually made public, and same as any other auditing firm's reports. So when a user wants to invest in a project or use a DeFi protocol, they can actually search for those audits, and to make sure at least they've been audited by a reputable firm, that they actually even have an audit at all. And they can read through the report. Our reports try to be at least half of it quite human readable to the average audience. So that allows them to understand what they're integrating with somewhat on that technical level. And so, but there's a lot of things in the industry that also are not related to smart contracts that we can't audit against, and a lot of social engineering and phishing and stuff. But Jock, I'm not sure if you could maybe go through more of the details on different things that you're sort of the guy who knows about how to not get hacked as a user, I would say.
Cheers, I appreciate it. But yeah, like Fletcher was saying, I guess we need to be absolutely clear on what a smart contract audit does and what it doesn't. So it's purely looking at the technicalities of the code. And so obviously that is one way that you can, look at whether a project is safe to invest in. But things that it doesn't do, it doesn't look at the validity of the project, like whether or not the token is going to go up. It doesn't look at the sort of business ethics in regards to the like people behind it. And so you have to sort of take that into consideration when you are looking at the audit report. It's purely from a technical perspective, and everything else that I think falls into that, do your own research category. But part of that research too is I think looking, like Fletcher said, are there multiple audits? Who's done the audit? Which is another thing that requires a little bit of know-how, because obviously there's no regulation or legislation around who can perform a smart contract audit. In all honesty, you could be a project that launches a token, and you could go on Fiverr and probably find someone to do an audit for a couple $100. Obviously, no one in the Web3 community is going to take that seriously unless there's a vetted name against it. But that's info that maybe the project owner doesn't have. So I think, all these considered, it's not like there is a one solution that fixes all yet. But like Fletcher was saying, it's one really strong point, at least from a technical perspective. I think that's the one that shocks people the most, where there's a hack or an exploit, and everyone's sort of left in the dark when it comes to what's happened.
You guys, obviously follow the industry quite closely, and occasionally we do see exploits of DeFi protocols. Is it easy to find information kind of as postmortems on those exploits, where users can go and see what happened and what they could look out for in future?
Yeah, usually any major exploit almost always will have those things. Sometimes you have to dig for them a bit on Twitter, is usually the go-to place, but most people that are interacting with Web3 are often on Twitter. Or a quick Google search these days will bring it up. The problem is some of those are very technical step-by-step of what happened. And it's kind of like Jock was saying, a lot of those are often outside of the user's control. So we've seen so many exploits that happen on reputable protocols, where very informed Web3 daily users were investing in these protocols, as they should have probably. And it was just a new day 0 day exploit that came out that was just found and exploited, that no one previously knew about and could not have been found by an auditing firm. And so sometimes it's out of the user's control. That's the part of it. But a lot of the more social engineering ones, or clicking links that you shouldn't have, or just what we call in the industry rug pulls, where you can kind of look at the ideally you can have insight into the founding team, what their motivations are, and the promises of the protocol. And if they're over promising, there's a good chance that they're pumping a token and waiting for everyone to jump in so that they can pull out theirs. So
a good example of like a method to avoid, rug pulls, because obviously, looking at the technical side of things, generally, within like an audit report, we can display what sort of admin rights certain users within that smart contract have, and whether they can essentially perform a rug pull quickly within the code base. But within any reputable report, there will be a MD5 hash or a GitHub commit hash of the code base. And that's essentially, if people don't know, think of it like a password of a snapshot of the code in that point in time. And developers use it. Say you've got a project that has 12,000 lines of code and someone goes in and changes one line. Instead of you sifting through that 12,000 lines, you essentially hash that code into a like hexadecimal string, so just numbers and letters. And if you change anything, when you hash it again, that number, that string changes. So it's like a password. So even if you change a letter, it's like the password. If it used to be banana, it won't be banana anymore. And so we put those within our report. So you can see once a project launches, if anything changes, it won't match up with the password, the MD5 hash, the GitHub commit hash in our report. And so there has been instances that we've seen in the past where people have launched with code that's been different. So than what's been in an audit report. So I would say straight away, that's something there that you can't trust. So I would say to a user base, if you see a project that, even though they have an audit from, it might be a reputable firm, go one layer deeper and make sure that the code that they launched with, and you'll be able to see because it's the smart contract that you actually interact with, just look at it on a scanner and see if the hash that they've actually launched with, like the code that they've launched with, matches with the code that has been audited within the report. Otherwise, if they've changed, we've had people reach out to us, unfortunately, after the fact, where they said, oh yeah, I got, my 3 audits, but I got hacked because right before we went live, we changed one line of code. Our devs were like, oh, it's not going to make a big difference. And they got hacked.
Yeah, that's wild. How can users, that's a great example there, but to take that question kind of a level up, how can users verify if a smart contract or a project has been audited properly? Like, what are they looking for in an audit report? How can someone who's just a regular reader or a regular DeFi user kind of start to digest whether something looks safe or doesn't?
That is a very good question, and it can be an issue. The way that the industry does it, which has its strengths and weaknesses, is that it's done on the reputation of those auditing firms. So there's essentially like a public zeitgeist shared knowledge of who the top 10 to 15 auditing firms are, and what auditing firms have been around for quite a long time. That is a good sense of it. Auditing firms that have been around for quite a long time and have audited larger protocols, although that is not always fail-proof. There are some dodgy audit firms who've done some pretty good names. But that's how it's done, the reputation of the auditing firm, because if good auditing firms try to avoid hacks, if a Hashlock project gets hacked, it's really going to hurt our reputation. So if a good reputation is against an audit report, that means that they probably made sure that all of the important tech was included in the scope, that it's reasonably up to date, and that it was a thorough audit. That's how a user can vet it. What was the reputation of that auditing firm? Because otherwise, what else can the user do? The other thing is maybe just make sure that all of the contracts that you're using are actually included in an audit report, because sometimes you might have a report on a certain protocol name, but that was old contracts and not new contracts. So make sure that those contracts are included, but that can be a little bit hard and unclear to do sometimes, but it's a good thing to do. When was the audit report? Was it years ago or was it recent? That's another one. But really, it's who audited it. And sometimes protocols get multiple audits. I'm not sure if, Jock, you would add to that, but that's probably what I would say.
I'd probably add one resource, but I would add like a caveat to that resource just to not, scare too many people away. And that would be there's a leaderboard, although it's not a leaderboard that you want to be leading, called rekt.news. So that's the URL. So rekt.news. And if you go to that site and you click on the leaderboard, it has a list of the biggest DeFi hacks that have happened in our industry. and next to the sort of project name of whoever was hacked, it has whether or not the project was audited, and if so, who audited the project. Now, I don't want to. The caveat is that there are some good names on there of firms that unfortunately have had a miss, but those firms have been around for quite a while. But I guess what we sort of say is that and behind sort of Hashlock's mantra is that we've never had a miss with any of our clients. That's sitting there on rec. So it's a good thing that that we haven't had a miss. So but it's a good way to get a sort of a view of, if you see, for example, maybe a firm that has had 1 to 2 misses, but they've been around for 4 to 6 years, then that's they're pretty reputable. If you see a firm that's been around for maybe 1 to 2 years and they've got 20 misses, well, maybe they're not the best. So it's sort of a quick snapshot of their track record and their history, and so that's probably a good way to get a top level overview. Obviously, there's many factors that maybe they've changed their processes and stuff, but unfortunately, I believe there have been some firms that maybe sort of scaled too much with the market in the past and have ebbed and flowed when it comes to their quality. That's always been a thing at Hashlock that we've seen like other firms do and been like, okay, we can't do that, regardless of what happens. Just like we're always trying to scale and grow as a business, but never at the expense of quality, because obviously we don't want any of our projects to get hacked.
What are some kind of like sneaky or less obvious vulnerabilities you guys have picked up in projects before that users should be aware of?
You want to take that one, Jock?
It's less vulnerabilities because more often than not, we always find a high vulnerability within like a report that we do, an audit that we do. The sneaky things generally is always based on the sort of human element to things. So one of the questions that we actually ask when engaging with a client is your development team internal or external? And that's a really important question, because obviously you would assume maybe from a project lead founder position that these guys that have received maybe quite a lot of investment and they're paying a external development team quite a lot of cash, but there isn't that I guess internal nature to things. And obviously, like, we have a team that are based here in Oz and we have a team that are based internationally, but we're really, really proud and comfortable, and we really trust our team, and they trust us. But people hiring external dev teams, even though they're paying them lots of money and there might be the idea of perceived trust there, we have caught dev teams putting in backdoors in projects that they are building themselves. So that's probably been the sneakiest thing. And they've seen the amount of money that they have been paid to develop the code, and they've gone and they've seen how much is intended to exist on chain and chucked a little backdoor in there. And we've actually had situations, believe it or not, where we have let the project lead know that, hey, you have there's a bad actor in the mix, and he's one of your guys. So that's been a pretty crazy, like, feels like a bit of a spy mission of like, all right, let's not let him know that he's been sort of found out, but let's put everything in place so that we can remediate this and make sure that he doesn't try anything new.
Yeah, that's wild. I know there's been a couple of stories about projects accidentally hiring like Lazarus Group as employees as well. So insane, hey?
Yeah. I think. Sorry, you go, Fletch.
Oh, I was just going to say a funny anecdote. I was talking to one of the larger recruiting boards in the Web3 space, and they crypto jobs list, actually, it's public now. They put out shout out to them. They've put out a product on their website where you can vet people and try to find out if they are from Lazarus Group or from the DRPK and things of that nature. So it's that much of a problem that there's a full solution built around vetting employees from that.
Yeah, part of the Hashlock auditor review process is that we get them on camera saying that Kim Jong-un isn't the supreme leader of North Korea. And if we see like a sweat drip start to fall down the forehead, it's like,
yeah.
all right, gigs up.
That's funny. Let's finish with some practical top tips for Aussie Binance users staying safe when trading, staking, or using DeFi protocols.
I think you're probably the guy.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Liam? I was too busy laughing at my own joke.
top tips for staying safe when you're using DeFi protocols for trading, staking, minting. Give us some practical tips for staying SAFU.
And before Jock answers this, what do you think on that, Jock? It's just the reason why I laugh is because these sort of things are quite common in the industry, and Jock has sort of built a reputation as one of the known guys of like, hey Jock, is this link safe to click, sort of thing. And we obviously get targeted a lot, and it's just a common thing in the industry of spammy emails, spammy links, and I think Jock just has a good feel for it. So not to put pressure on you, Jock, but you're kind of the guy.
Oh geez, thanks mate, I really appreciate that. I think often maybe it's a bit of a mindset shift. Maybe instead of trying to figure out reasons to sort of like if you have a bad vibe on like a project or something, instead of trying to find reasons as to why you should engage, try to find reasons why you shouldn't. Like try to disprove your thesis of why you should invest, which goes against it, but I think will then make more long-term investors because they will have more safer investments. I know it goes sort of, the antithesis of what we do and, more growth in the industry, but I actually think that it's a thing that's going to promote more long-term growth. And I think we've touched on some of the points today. So like Fletcher was saying too, it can be as simple as Google the product name and then Google audit, especially with like Google has, AI functionality built in. It can start to search, the top 3 pages of each site that pops up and give you a pretty clear idea on where you can find an audit, and just check that audit firm is reputable. And that's pretty easy too. Does it have like, where is it on its sort of social page standing? Was it a firm that spun up yesterday? Have they been around for a few years? What other projects do they have under their name? So for example, you go to our site, you can see we sort of have some of our big names up front of who we've audited in the past. I would just say go one step deeper than just seeing, so-and-so project was audited. Just look at the report. We initially, when we started, part of our whole thing was that we didn't actually, we were looking at reports from other firms and they were purely technical. And so maybe people have the wrong idea where they think that still today it's like that. The first half of our report is extremely human readable, and the second half is dedicated towards the developers and the technical people. And we've seen a lot of people, take that element and put that in their reports as well. So everyone should be able to read the security findings page where it has like a rating or how it is, and that gives you a really good idea of how safe the product is. And as well, check on socials. Has there been any news in regards to this? Use like AI tools. Any news? Don't use the tools where it's like, referring to 2-year-old data, but you use the web search functionality of AI tools and be like, hey, is there any news about this project? Because there might be breaking news about, you don't want to invest in something that morning discovered a vulnerability that everyone's exiting.
For sure. I'm going to share a tip for users as well, because this is something that we've seen a heap of, and something that I definitely want to call out on the show. We've seen impersonation scams on the rise, and particularly impersonations of major exchanges, including Binance, via SMSs. And so basically what is happening here is that scammers are able to make a fraudulent message appear in the same SMS thread as a genuine message. And that could be potentially something that users believe is a genuine message, fall for, and go on to contact the scammers and are asked to move their funds out of their secure exchange account and onto a third-party DeFi wallet. So guys, you really need to set up your anti-phishing code to make sure that you have the best security from the Binance side to protect you. And then you need to really keep an eye on these scams. Binance does not have a phone number. Binance will not ask you to contact them via phone. You need to be logging into your Binance app and contacting support directly in order to get in touch with Binance support. It will never proactively reach out to you. So guys, there's a blog article here. I'm going to drop it in the description of the video as well. Please take a read, stay SAFU, and make sure you're well across what's going on in the industry. But that's kind of it from our side, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on. That was super, super valuable for users. And yeah, we'll have to get you back on soon.
It's been fun.
Legendary. Yeah, thanks so much, and good work, Binance, for that anti-phishing code. That's a great idea.
Yep, turn it on, guys. It's super helpful.
Turn it on, guys.
Please like and subscribe. Stay in touch with the show. Let me know who else you'd love to see joining me, and we'll see you next week. Catch you, Binance. Bye.
Peace.
Please note that this discussion includes insights from non-affiliated third parties and key opinion leaders. Binance provides this platform for informational and educational purposes only and is not responsible for any content or insights provided. This information should not be considered as financial, tax, or investment advice from Binance. DYOR Binance.